Welcome to the podcast series from School of Fish Strategy Consulting. The topic for today's conversation is trust equity. We have two virtual experts, Mike and Amy, to share their thoughts on trust equity as an invincible asset for markets, corporations, and leaders in modern times. We hope you will find the conversations engaging and enlightening. Thank you for joining.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going to break down complex research into, well, the knowledge you can actually use. Today, we're digging into something that sounds maybe a bit soft, but is actually a secret weapon for companies that last. Turns out it's not just about driving for profit, that kind of self-interest. What really stabilizes things, markets, or organizations, it's trust. And surprisingly, it's measurable. So, this deep dive is centered on two key papers by Professor Dr. Senthil Kumar. One's called Trust Equity as an Organizational Asset, and the other is Trustworthiness as Social Force. Our goal here is to take these academic ideas and show how they apply, how you might, build resilience wherever you have influence. We're essentially unpacking a really old debate in economics, this constant push and pull. Acting purely for yourself, the papers call it self-interest regarding versus considering others, which is other interest regarding behavior.
Right. And the conventional view, it really starts with Adam Smith, doesn't it? That famous line about the butcher, the brewer, the baker. We get what we need, not because they're nice guys, but because they're looking out for, number one, their own interests.
Self-interest is the engine.
Exactly. That's the standard model. But these papers immediately pose a critical question. What if that self-interest has no moral guardrails? What happens if you just can't trust anyone in the transaction?
Right.
Well, the market doesn't just become inefficient. It actually starts to break down. The research is pretty clear. Without that ethical component, without trustworthiness, the free market can become, a Hobbesian jungle.
Right.
Basically, chaos. Everyone fighting everyone else. Not exactly productive.
Okay, so trustworthiness isn't just a nice to have. We need to understand how it really works, how it acts as this powerful social glue. And importantly, how its absence creates real measurable economic problems that can, take down huge companies, even shake whole countries. Let's maybe start with some history. Where did this idea of purely self-interested markets start to show cracks?
The sources actually point out something pretty stark. Adam Smith publishes his work, and then boom, almost immediately you get these awful events that seem to contradict the idea that it all just works out. Like the Great Irish Famine in the 1840s. Markets where working food was being exported, but meanwhile, people were starving. Over 1 million deaths. Unregulated markets didn't save them.
And these weren't just, one-off tragedies. Yeah. The argument in the sources is that these were systemic failures. They showed what happens when the market is the only judge of what's right. And it didn't stop there, did it? We saw it again and again. Think about the 1929 crash leading to the Great Depression.
Then 1987, Black Monday. And more recently, the 2008 global financial crisis. All fueled by unchecked behavior, massive risks, hidden by, frankly, a lack of transparency and trustworthiness.
So those are huge systemic failures. But the research also drills down into individual companies, and it seems like they fail for the exact same reason. Just pure, unadulterated opportunism.
Exactly. I mean, look at the list the papers mention. It's like a who's who of corporate scandals. Enron, Tyco, WorldCom, Global Crossing.
Wells Fargo, Lehman Brothers.
Right. These weren't just mistakes or bad luck. The people in charge were actively, bending or breaking ethical rules, defrauding investors, misleading customers, all for short-term payoff. It got so bad, people were seriously asking if management as a profession had just lost all legitimacy.
And this kind of behavior, this opportunism, it gets magnified in big, complex markets, doesn't it? Through what the sources call socioeconomic friction points.
Yeah, two big ones stand out. First, there's information asymmetry. Simple concept, really. One side knows a lot more than the other in a deal.
Like buying a used car?
Perfect example. You suspect the dealer knows things you don't. That imbalance, that asymmetry, it creates friction. It could cost you time, money, just plain stress. The second friction point is social biases. This is about groupthink, maybe trends, fads, or just focusing on very short-term gains that benefit a few people or groups. Often it's at the expense of everyone else. And that's a perfect way to generate really sharp inequality.
You put those friction points together with raw self-interest, the sources say it just spirals into greed, steep inequality, and apathy. It undermines the whole economic system, makes markets unstable, and sometimes it even leads to political unrest or pushes workers to organize. The wealth engine becomes a value destroyer. Okay, so if pure self-interest isn't the answer, let's pivot. Let's talk about the solution Dr. Kumar proposes, trustworthiness. It's framed specifically as this other interest-regarding approach. The idea is it provides the balance, right?
Exactly. It's the counterweight. Think of it less as a fuzzy feeling and more like a critical mechanism, a hinge. The papers call it a dialectical fulcrum. It's what stops the system swinging wildly between total chaos, which is unfettered freedom, and rigid control, like suffocating bureaucracy.
Okay, fulcrum. How does it work?
When freedom is enshrined, people abuse fellow beings. When control is exercised, people hate authority. When self-interest is advocated, the public good is compromised. When the public good is promoted, people call it free riding and waste. When labor rights are protected, owners say their property and profit rights are violated.
It helps resolve these inherent tensions, these opposites that always exist in society and business. The sources list 3 key pairs. First, autonomy versus bureaucratic control. If you trust your team, you can give them freedom to operate without constantly looking over their shoulder. Less control needed.
Makes sense.
Second, self-interest, private goods versus other interest, public goods. Trustworthiness helps ensure that chasing private profit doesn't wreck the shared resources or environment we all depend on. And third, and this is huge, it addresses the classic conflict between business owners, shareholders, capital, and employees, labor. Trust builds a framework where both sides feel their agreements and commitments will actually be respected.
Right. So if that's the role trustworthiness plays, how do we actually build it in an organization? The research seems quite practical here, offering toolkits. Let's start with what needs to be in the company's DNA, these 5 antecedents of trust.
Yes, these are like the core ingredients. You need these 5 things consistently present to create the right climate for trust and exchange. 1, ability. Is the organization actually competent? Does it have the skills and knowledge to do what it says it will do?
Raceline competence.
2, integrity. Does it stick to its principles? Does it keep its promises, even when it's tough or expensive? 3, benevolence. This is crucial. It's the opposite of opportunism. Does the organization show it genuinely cares about its stakeholders beyond just what the contract requires?
Yeah.
A helping tendency.
Go an extra mile.
4, commitment. Is there a sense of obligation? A willingness to invest resources and effort showing it's a long-term relationship, not just a one-off transaction. And 5, shared governance or power sharing. This is about fairness in process. Do stakeholders feel represented? Do they have a voice in decisions that affect them? Inclusiveness.
Okay, so ability, integrity, benevolence, commitment, and shared governance. When organizations nail these 5 consistently, the research says they cut down massively on costs, both the costs of watching employees, bureaucratic costs, and the costs of monitoring deals, transaction costs. And reducing those costs is what builds this core concept, trust equity. Define that for us. What exactly is trust equity?
Okay, so trust equity is described as a reputational value or a premium. It's what an organization gets back from being consistently trustworthy. The paper calls it an invincible organizational and managerial asset.
Invincible, that's a strong word.
It is. We talked about brand equity, market equity, social capital. Those are related, but trust equity is different. You can often buy social connections or pump money into marketing for brand equity. But trust equity, that's earned. It's an accomplished honor built over time through ethical actions. And here's the key distinction. If you destroy your trust equity, think Enron again, your brand and market value can evaporate overnight. They become worthless.
But the flip side, and this must be why it's called invincible, is that high trust equity can protect you. It acts like insurance, helping you recover from financial hits.
Precisely. It can shield you. To build it, organizations need what the sources call hygiene factors. This starts with the core motto: truth, excellence, and honesty. Veritas, Veritas, Sinceritas.
Sounds good, but how does that translate?
It has to drive actual management practices. Things like giving operational units more autonomy because you trust them, genuinely increasing inclusiveness and representation in decision-making, promoting empowered, self-managing teams, and having really transparent accounting, no hiding the ball.
Let's make this concrete. The Johnson & Johnson Tylenol recall in 1982 is a classic example, right? Someone poisoned capsules, people died. J&J's reaction was immediate. Pull everything, 31 million bottles off the shelves, huge cost.
Massive cost. But what did it demonstrate? Ability, they acted fast. Integrity, they owned the problem. And benevolence, customer safety first, profits second. They spend a fortune, but because their underlying trust equity was already strong and they reinforced it with that action, their stock bounced back remarkably fast.
And they dominated the market for years after. That action built decades of trust.
Now contrast that with BP after the Deepwater Horizon spill. Their reputation took a permanent hit. Why? Because the investigation showed it wasn't just an accident, it stemmed from internal failures. Cutting corners on safety, ignoring warnings. They failed on integrity and benevolence.
So the market penalized them long term. Lower stock returns, seen as riskier.
Exactly. And remember Ford and Firestone, the tire failures. Instead of collaborating, they got into a public fight, blaming each other.
Terrible strategy.
Disaster. They both ended up destroying market value and trust because neither showed benevolence or commitment to solving the problem together. Opportunism won out and everyone lost.
But on the flip side, Toyota is held up as a positive, sustained example. High trust, high market cap over decades. It's not just product quality, though that's key, it's also their management style, right? Participative management, involving employees.
That's textbook shared governance. And their focus on stakeholders, not just shareholders. It builds that long-term commitment and benevolence. It demonstrates trustworthiness consistently. And ultimately embedding this stuff, building and using trust equity, it really comes down to leadership. The sources talk about a transcendent role for leaders, not hiding behind old ways or just shouting slogans. Trustworthy leaders have to bring everyone together, all stakeholders, around a shared vision, collective aspirations.
How do you do that?
By visibly putting other interest ahead of pure self-interest. By demonstrating competence, absolutely, but also ethics, empathy, and genuine optimism. Think about leaders like, say, Mahatma Gandhi or Abraham Lincoln. They managed to unite incredibly divided groups. How? By showing they were committed to the well-being of the whole community, not just their own power or faction. They built trust on a massive scale.
Okay, so it's about embodying these principles. And the sources also list 5 core traits of trustworthy leaders themselves. These seem like the individual characteristics needed to make the organizational stuff happen.
That's right. These are the personal attributes that fuel the system. Confidence, not arrogance, but belief in the mission. Authenticity, being genuine, especially in your benevolence. Professionalism, competence and reliability. Respect, valuing others. And control, self-control, emotional regulation. When leaders live these traits, they create a sense of security. They kind of eliminate that fear of the future for people. They show that there are safety nets, reserves, a plan that the leader is looking out for the community's economic and financial well-being.
It all comes together then.
Right.
The big takeaway seems really clear. Trustworthiness isn't some optional extra. It's not a soft skill. It's a hard economic asset, this trust equity, that literally protects organizations and markets from falling apart. It drives real long-term value. Just focusing on the next quarter's numbers, ignoring the ethical foundations. Well, as the research suggests, you're basically asking for trouble.
Couldn't agree more. And that leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to mull over. We live in an age where information flies around instantly, globalization connects everyone, but trust in our big institutions, it's tanking. Businesses, government, media, NGOs, public trust is often below 50% in many, many countries. Now, if governments are often too slow or inefficient to fix this trust deficit, what about you? What specific things can you do in your job, your team, your community, your sphere of influence to build and deploy trust equity? How can you actively reduce that societal friction? Something to think about.